All right, so here we are, April 5th. We're going to go back here to our March 24th map of Ukraine to look at, exactly what's going on this time. And so mainly what we're going to be talking about today is Kyiv, the area of Bucha, just outside of Irpin, Chernobyl, and then an interesting thing that we're seeing on going on down here in Mariupol. So this map looks very different this week in accordance to what we're saying that Russia is continuing to hold. So here we go. This is a large overscale map of Kyiv. And so initially when the Russian forces came in, they came in and they dug into Chernobyl. And they set a camp up in Chernobyl in the woods outside of the failed nuclear plant in the hopes that nobody would artillery shell them. Now, it's not that they thought anybody would artillery shell the nuclear plant itself, but they didn't want to disturb the ground around the nuclear plant, and so Russia felt like they could hide their troops in that area. And then the main body of Russian troops came in to the northwest of Kyiv, trying to battle their way into the city to get, within that distance so they could start artillery shelling Kyiv, which is standard Russian doctrine. So, the front was set, the battle took place, and then Russian troops moved in from the east. Pretty much the only thing they held were major roadways. That's where some of the convoy stuff that you saw previously, took place. And so Ukraine managed to continue to hold on to Kyiv. However, to that area in Chernobyl, well, it's been reported that a lot of troops in Chernobyl started getting sick and had to be egressed out to Belarus for medical treatment. And what that did was that created a void behind the frontline Russian troops. Also, attack of the convoys on the major roadways through drone strikes and through small unit action negated a lot of that. So then we had a Russian front right outside of Kyiv with nobody sitting behind it to provide security for its rear. And what that did was it left it as a possible that the Ukrainians could have created a flank maneuver and gotten to the rear of the Russian troops, and through a series of flanking maneuvers could have potentially completely encircled the Russians, which would have been a huge victory for the Ukrainians. So instead, the Russians decided that they were going to go ahead and withdraw their forces from the area back to Belarus, and they've stated they were going to redeploy them to the Eastern Front. Now, again, as I said, several hundred Russian troops have been reported to have been treated due to acute radiation sickness from Chernobyl, but we don't have anything that proves that at this point. So we're sitting here and we're looking at the withdrawal from the area of Kyiv, and the Russian forces, as they withdrew, after the Chernobyl troops withdrew, the Russian forces on the front line outside of Kyiv left so quickly that they actually ended up blowing 3 separate bridges just outside of Kyiv in order to slow down the potential for an assault from their rear as they retreated from the Ukrainians. So, it's a pretty hasty retreat, and they tried to get out of there as quick as they could, but in order to delay the Ukrainians from being able to come to the rear and attack them from the rear as they retreated, they blew those bridges. And Ukrainians tried their best to follow up behind them and attack them from the rear, but it was very limited unit action, and we have no indication that they took out a tremendous amount of troops as Russia withdrew. However, one of the things that was found was in the city of Bucha. And Bucha sits just there to the northwest of Irpin, which has been a big topic of discussion for the heavy fighting that went on there. And so what I'm going to ask you is that if you have anybody who's sensitive to any kind of images or any children present, just go ahead and stop the video now. We're going to get in some images they probably shouldn't see. So it's been reported that over 400 civilians in the city of Bucha were massacred by Russian troops within a couple of days before their withdrawal. This here was an intelligence photo that was shared with the Ukrainians from U.S. intelligence. And, if you see something here, it's something I just want to point out. So what we have here, we have the presence of bodies laterally, but if you look to the side spaces that are behind buildings, things like that, you don't see any buildings, which would lead you to believe that these were all the victim of sniper fire. It's all lateral fire, and that's a shame for them. So again, victims strewn out throughout the city of Buka. This particular photo here was of a wife and two children. The husband has given witness testimony to the fact they were killed by Russians. This one here is pretty interesting. This is Russians' rebuke to the claim that they killed the people in Buka. They highlighted these red fields themselves. They're trying to state that inside these red fields are green boxes, 8 boxes of food given to the citizens by the Russians, and they're stating that the Ukrainians would have killed or the Russians, the Ukrainians would have killed the other Ukrainians for accepting Russian aid. So, and again, this odd thing keeps popping up here all over Ukraine where the dead do not have shoes on. And I've seen many photos from Ukraine's side showing dead Russian soldiers, and I haven't seen any shoeless dead Russian soldiers yet. The only people I've seen dead without shoes on from this point are Ukrainians. And again, here's 264 Ukrainians who supposedly surrendered Mariupol to the Russian forces. And, as you can see from this photo, every one of the Ukrainians here in the photo is wearing shoes at this time. Mariupol has been a big hotbed. The Russians are saying that the Azov battalion in Mariupol murdered and raped this young lady here in this building, and then cut and burned a swastika into her stomach. And again, that's one of the propaganda tools they use to try to justify their presence in Ukraine right now. Is they're trying to rid the world of white supremacy. So this is another odd one here. This is the Russians saying that they killed these forces with use of a flamethrower in Mariupol. There is one thing I wanted to point out to you, though. And again, you see this with dead Ukrainians. You don't see this with dead Russians. But again, here we have a stack of bodies. And with the exception of 2 individuals in this stack that you can see, all the people who supposedly were killed by flamethrowers in this stack are all missing footwear. So it's just extraordinarily odd. Like I said, you could see this with, the Ukrainians. When the Russians put out their propaganda photos, you see this. What you don't see is when Ukrainians put out photos of dead Russians, you don't see the dead Russians being footless. And this is what I'm going to pose to you is a use of propaganda by Russia as far as these people being killed by flamethrower, because had these people been alive, surely had they been alive and fighting against the Russians, they would have been wearing shoes at that point in time. And all these, again, bodies are shoeless, and their feet are just as burnt as the rest of their body. And had they been wearing shoes, their feet would be a much different color than the rest of their body. This fella here, he actually has socks on, and his socks are melted. But had he had footwear on, it would be a much different story. So it's really odd, and again, kind of trying to figure out what the deal is with everything Russia produces, or most everything Russia produces. The people are missing shoes. So Russia has sustained extraordinarily heavy losses throughout this fight, and it's estimated somewhere around 15,000 Russian casualties. And that is actually, in a little bit over a month of fighting, that is actually the same number of casualties Russia took throughout 10 years of war in Afghanistan. So this isn't going to be sustainable for very long. Now, this is a map of where Russia is saying that they currently hold ground in Ukraine. All the areas marked in blue are supposedly strongholds of Russia. They're saying that, they pretty much own these areas at this point. You got to put in Crimea. You got to put in Donbass because they automatically say they have those. But it's a very different map than what is being shown as the areas actually occupied by Russia, which is this map today. So everything in the red is areas where supposedly Russia has control of those areas, They dominate the battle space in these areas. And if you can see from our map from the 24th of March, there are no Russian forces indicated to be holding ground in or around the area of Kyiv. So, supposedly all those forces are being redeployed to the Eastern Front. The thing is, you can't withdraw your forces in Kyiv and push them to the Eastern Front because that leaves Kyiv open to an attack from Belarus again. So, Russia can say what they want, but they're definitely not holding all the area that they're saying they hold. And this is another one of those Russian videos where they're just trying to make fun of Biden. And everybody would prefer to have Obama back, and that's just kind of their stick, and they're going to stick with it. So that is what it is. So there you go. That's kind of where we're at for the last week, a little bit longer in the week. But I'll be honest with you, my biggest fear moving forward is that with the pullout of troops from around Kyiv and them standing by in Belarus, and the fact that last week they started finding nerve antidote kits or nerve agent antidote kits on them, is that this could potentially lead itself to a chemical attack in Kyiv. Okay, so nuclear, I don't know so much nuclear. I don't know that we're there, but chemical, yeah. But I think as the Ukrainians push Russia further back towards their own border, and if they're able to push him out of the Donbass, could nuclear become an option? I don't think Putin wants to look like a loser on this deal. But I wouldn't say anything's completely off the table, but I don't think he's at the point right now of a nuclear option. But a chemical attack around Kyiv does concern me. And so that's the thing I would keep my eye open for the next week. Even though Kyiv is pretty clear at this point of forces from Russia around the city besieging it, they cannot just take all the personnel and move them out to the east and use them there, because if they take all their military personnel from Kyiv and they go fight the battle on the eastern side of their nation, they leave Kyiv open for a quick attack from Belarus. So it's a highly complex issue as to how you proportion out your troops and exactly what you have to do in order to maintain the security of your capital city, but also try to reinforce those people who are trying to take back territory on the southeastern side of Ukraine. And that's a challenge, and that's why after battles history books are written, so to talk about strategy and what happened and what the result was, so you can be a student of it and you can figure out what worked and what didn't work, and there you go. So but that's what we're looking at, and we'll see what the next week brings.